Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we have an exciting show today. But before we get to that, I'm going to ask our audience to please visit cobrt.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, check out all of the events that we have coming up, as well as check out our radio podcast program. Again, if you want to just check that out, that's cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Also, be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here, and you can always find our show at cobrt.com/live. But let's go ahead and jump into today's show. I am so excited. I have two wonderful women here with me to talk about Space Foundation workshops, Space Foundation Space Commerce Program. We have a lot of titles here. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that. But I'm going to introduce each of you. I have Diane Dimeff and Shelly Brunswick here with me. How are you ladies doing?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Yes.
Happy New Year. Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you and your viewers about the Space Commerce Program through the Space Foundation.
Yes, I'm excited to have you both on to talk about it. And Happy New Year to both of you as well. Can you believe it's already halfway through January?
No.
I'm still writing the year wrong, but...
Yeah. Aren't we all?
Yes. So Diane, I want to start here with you and tell me about your background, and then we'll introduce Shelly and have her talk about your background, and then how you came together for this Space Commerce Program.
Sure. Well, like most people, including you and Shelly, I'm sure, my career path has been very nonlinear. And I would say that most of my career was spent running MBA programs, Masters of Business Administration programs at several universities. And I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in that capacity. And most recently, I ran eSpace, the Center for Space Entrepreneurship, which is a business incubator for aerospace startup companies that was federally funded. It's a nonprofit organization, and that was really exciting. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, space entrepreneurs, I don't know that those are two words that I would have necessarily thought to put together, but that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, you know, when I first heard about the opportunity, it was actually to start that organization as a nonprofit. And while I've always been interested in aerospace entrepreneurship was a bit of a new concept to me, and in some ways I was thinking, oh, Baskin-Robbins on the moon.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Astronaut ice cream.
Eventually, yeah.
Exactly, right? It's Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
It's the ice cream of the
Yeah.
future.
But as it turns out, there's so much entrepreneurship in aerospace, and I learned that very quickly. And in starting the program, which was, I think, why I was hired, because I've started a lot of different programs, academic and nonprofit, et cetera. It was just a really exciting program and organization, because aerospace, once again, has become very sexy, and people are interested in it, not
Yes.
just to be in it, but to watch it and to be a part of the new technologies that are coming out that impact our daily lives.
Yes, and there's so much that goes on in space that I think we'll talk a little bit about the history
Right.
of the entrepreneurship in there. But Shelly, what's your background?
So I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Space Foundation. But my background before that was I was an Air Force officer, and I did space acquisition. So I was primarily stationed in Los Angeles doing the procurement for future space programs, so whether it's launch vehicles or satellites, technology, ground stations. And then my last 5 years, I went and worked on Capitol Hill as an Air Force liaison, discussing with Congress the budgetary needs for the Air Force. So I got to look at the whole Air Force budget and talk about why the Air Force needs certain parts and pieces to be successful and carry out its mission. And then fortunately, when I went to retire, the Space Foundation was looking for a new person, and I was fortunate enough to get the position. So I'm honored to be part of the Space Foundation family.
Absolutely. So you got bitten by the aerospace bug really early.
Really early.
Yeah, that's not a bug that's easy to get rid of.
No.
Yeah.
And space is exciting.
Well, and just informationally, I first got bitten by the bug through Star Trek.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So while I wasn't in the industry at that point, I was such a Star Trek Trekkie.
Yeah.
Being in love with James T. Kirk, I was a young teenager, but I wanted to be Spock because he was so rational and
Well, yeah.
yeah. So that's what got my bug going, and then just kind of followed it over the years. years, and Shelly's been in it for decades, and I'm just really impressed with what she brings to the table.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned that space has gotten sexy again. And I think we lost it a little bit, right? Because during the Star Trek era and, you know, the time that we were landing on the moon, those are pretty separate, you know, times. But that was sexy. That was an exciting time for aerospace. And then we kind of lost our way a little bit with it. Okay, we've been in the moon. What more do we really need to do?
Been there, done that.
Exactly. And we lost our way with it. But then we started remaking the Star Treks and the Star Wars, right?
Right.
And we started recently, you know, it's become more of a commercial space.
Yes.
Which I think is kind of the path that we're taking with this, right? With this space commerce program.
Absolutely. Well, the Space Foundation, let me tell you what our goal is. You know, we are the world's premier organization to inspire, educate, connect, and advocate on the global space community. So when we talk about the space community, we're talking about military, obviously, military intelligence, commercial, which we're going to talk about, civil, which is your NASA or other government civil agencies, and then the international component. And, you know, when space first started, there was just Russia and the United States, and it was a space race. And now it's global. I mean, there are now not only countries, but there are cities talking about wanting to put satellites in space. So it's really become mainstream, global, and when we look at just space, but it's also the economic engine that can drive a lot of our country's GDP. So that part is really exciting. So the Space Commerce Program particularly, I brought you a little chart that shows what the budget was. In 2017, the global space economy was $384 billion, and that's a 7% increase from the year before, and 80% of that is commercial, which means it's application services and products, which means it's commercialized, and there's opportunity for entrepreneurs and business people to be involved in that piece. And what does the future look like? Because you're saying, okay, it was $384 billion in 2017. We're probably around $400 billion now or more. What is it going to be? And depending who you look at, and I brought you some charts as well, whether it's Morgan Stanley or Bank of America Merrill Lynch, they're predicting in the next 20 years we're going to grow to $1 to $3 trillion. Wow. And again, that's not rocket vehicles and astronauts. That's jobs here on Earth that are great paying jobs that are going to, you know, do economic development. And so that's the exciting part. And, you know, if you listen to Secretary Ross from the Department of Commerce, he says we're going to get there much sooner than 20 years down the road. This $1 trillion is going to happen, you know, in 2025 or so. So the Department of Commerce is motivated to make this happen and empower space commerce. And that's where we kind of came up with this program and the grant that came with it.
Awesome.
And I'll add that the space commerce industry that Shelly is referring to isn't, as she said, just the launch vehicles that go into space and explore various galaxies and planets and all the things that we watch on TV, but it's all the industries that are related to space-based technologies or reliant on space-based technology, whether it's agriculture or finance. Like 80% of the ATMs rely on satellites for exact timestamps. The whole sort of medical field and the burgeoning piece of that, cybersecurity, of course, and it will even include UAS, which is an exploding industry that depends entirely on satellites and GPS and all sorts of things.
I'm dependent on GPS.
Yes.
Oh, we all are. Every single day. I lost my phone one time, and it's like, I don't even know what to do with my day.
Right?
What do I do? Where am I supposed to be? How do I get there? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I've been living here for 8 years, and I still use my Google Maps every day.
Yeah.
Mostly because it tells me where the traffic is and how I can avoid that. But, yeah.
And I brought a couple examples for you as well that some people don't think about. It's the app design piece. So we all see these little scooters in the cities in Denver and DC and all over where people get on those little scooters. Well, that was really enabled by space technology. Now, I don't know if the inventor of those knew that at the time. They created an app, and it's using geofencing. So you get on the scooter, you have an app, it unlocks, and depending how far you go on that scooter, and then when you relock it, it charges you based on how far you go. And that's all based on geofencing and GPS technology. And so this billion-dollar industry of GPS products was done all thank you and courtesy of the United States Air Force. And it's a free platform that has created this industry. There's another one I thought was kind of interesting I'd share, and it's called kind of like Space Cowboys if you look it up. In Australia, they've come up with a way, they're big ranchers, and a lot of times when you think of ranching, you think of lots of ranch hands, fencing, moving cattle from one field to another. And now how they're doing it is they can put the geo tracker on the lead cow, and then there's no fences, there's no need for all the personnel, and just by using the geo-positioning, geo-fencing, you can move cattle from one pasture to another, or they know not to go up to a certain barrier. So now instead of having to do all that labor-intensive building fences and moving cattle manually, now there's a way of using space technology. So these are new applications that some entrepreneur came up with to solve problems that, are revolutionary. So when we think about space technology, yes, astronauts and launch vehicles are very important. And we can talk all about that and the importance of lowering launch costs and all that. But it's the other technology that's leveraged here on Earth that we don't even know it's space technology that's making our lives better, like cataract surgery and mammograms and all these other technologies, advanced materials, formulated food, water purification, all this came out of space technology. And so this technology is there and available for anyone to develop it and start a company and bring it to market.
Awesome. Give me, give me an example. You said mammograms. I don't think that I knew that came from space technology. How did that come about?
So it came from the Hubble program. So the Hubble telescope was designed to look for anomalies in space. And so that technology is looking for anomalies in the human body now, looking for unusual mass. And so, when we look at mammogram technology or cataract surgery came from the space program, looking at the astronauts' eyes and tracking them. So we have all these medical devices that are coming from space technology, advanced materials. I talk about I want everyone to go into space technology, and this includes people from astronauts to fashion designers. When you look at Blue Origin and SpaceX, they've hired fashion designers because we need new spacesuits. Spacesuits that will have technology in them, that will be made of new materials. But you know what? Those fashion designers won't just be creating fashion spacesuits. They're going to be creating clothing here on Earth using different materials, and now we're going to be incorporating healthcare devices. We all have the watch that can track our heartbeats and our healthcare. And I just watched an interview about how, Apple wants to really be the leader in changing health for our country and for the world. But we can incorporate technology now into materials. So I need fashion designers who want to get STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematical degrees, so they can incorporate that technology into fashion so that we can all wear our healthy heart clothing that can monitor us, but then we're all still looking very in vogue.
Yes.
I was working with some students at CU Boulder in the fashion area when I was running eSpace, and it was really interesting because they were developing wearable technology, and the dancers would wear them. All sorts of different types of people would be wearing this wearable technology, not just for health but for fun because it tells them where they're supposed to be. So it's just remarkable the kind of space-based technologies that can impact and make our lives easier, more fun, more creative.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, and I saw recently there was a dress that they put on, I forget the country that they were in, but these 3 different women wore this dress and they went to a nightclub and they counted how many times the women were inappropriately touched in a nightclub. So not only are we looking at health, safety.
Safety,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. And so I just thought that one was fascinating, but I never even thought to put fashion and space together.
Yeah.
Though I should have known look at the Star Trek outfits, right?
That's right.
We're all eventually
We're all going to be wearing onesies.
Exactly. As long as mine looks like an astronaut's outfit,
There you go.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And again, that's just That's part of wanting to bring diversity into the space community. So, we want more women, minority, disadvantaged communities, rural communities to benefit from space technology. So when you think about rural communities, you think big agriculture. Well, big ag is not possible without GPS. And you can also look at, there are sensors on the International Space Station that can look at crops and determine what crops need more water or fertilize or pest control. And so it's not just the sensor that's on the International Space Station, but also a computer programmer here on Earth had to create the software that can interpret the data coming down from the system, that the farmer actually gets the data and then better knows how to manage their crops. So when we talk about space technology and who's all involved, it's all career fields. Whether you're, communication, financial manager, artist, to rocket scientist, engineer, designing the next space shuttle or space launch vehicle, to pharmaceuticals, healthcare, big data, the Internet of Things. So the Space Commerce Program was designed to help take this kind of information and bring it out to Americans who are interested in wanting to be entrepreneurs, who maybe didn't know that this was an opportunity for them. And the grant through the Department of Commerce, through the Minority Business Development Agency, is allowing us to make this program complementary for minority business enterprise, so that they may have not thought that space was for them, but it is. Space is for everyone. And space in America should look like America, meaning we should have business people that represent all of America, diversity, women, minorities. And so that's part of the goal, is to get more minority business enterprises excited about space entrepreneurship.
Well, yeah, there's huge diversity in entrepreneurship. And so to turn that into space, I think, is amazing, and it's a great step forward. You mentioned a grant. So talk more about that and what kind of process went into winning that grant.
A lot of hard work.
Yes. I'm sure there was a lot of writing.
And a lot of waiting.
And luck, and a lot of waiting. The grant piece was, we found out about the grant through the Minority Business Development Agency and others who saw the grant come out, and there was specifically a piece for space commerce. And everyone reached out to the Space Foundation and said, who better to apply for this than the Space Foundation? You're the global leader in advocating for space. And so we looked at the grant, and my boss, the CEO, Tom Zellabor, knew Diane. And that's how he said, and when I went to him and said, we should apply for this grant, he said, well, I'm going to put you in touch with Diane. And Diane has been our content lead for the program. And then it was also our CFO, Holly Roberts, who helped lead this. Financially, can we make this happen? And then we were the content and the logistics. And we put together a proposal that has 4 parts that we hope will help inspire new entrants into space commerce. So, Diane, I know you wanted to talk about a couple of those components that were developed.
Yeah.
Sure. So the Space Commerce program is actually divided into 4 different components. Excuse me. And each of them is meant to not only encourage minority business enterprises and others who might participate to go into not just the space industry, but to recognize that whatever business they're in right now may be applicable to some component of the space-related industries, whether it's agriculture, as Shelly said, or it's telecommunications, or whatever it might be. You're using it right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I get to use this platform to help you talk about aerospace.
So the 4 components, we start off with what I would call the core curriculum, and these are space commerce webinars, and there are 6 of them, and they're really critical for anyone who's either thinking about starting a business that may be in a space-related industry, or who is already in an industry, maybe thinking about starting a new product line or going into a different a sector of the aerospace industry. And those 4 really are the 6 webinars are recorded and online, posted online on our website, which is at thespacefoundation.org.
Awesome.
And you can go to a number of different places to find those webinars. And the topics range from space in our lives, how do we use it, growing your business, how do you, for instance, create a new product line that might go into a different sector of a space-related industry, managing in the aerospace industry, if you're specifically in the industry, or if you're going after government granting, managing in that kind of an environment is very different than, say, sort of managing in many other industries, because it's contract driven, it's fee driven, rate driven. You have to negotiate with the government basically, and or with companies that are negotiating. If you're a supplier, and they're negotiating with the government, then you have to be within their supply chain that requires them to operate in certain ways. We also have space commerce in the future, which is really a wonderful one, and it gives entrepreneurs the opportunity to think about an expert's view of what's going to happen in the future and how they might take advantage of what this person thinks is the future of space commerce. And this person is Mark Sarangelo, who's the CEO of Quanstar, but he's the former, he ran Sierra Nevada Space Systems.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's the concept leader of the Dream Chaser, which we hope will replace the shuttle.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the space, or the Dream Chaser, is that it has a horizontal liftoff rather than a vertical, and so it's reusable when it comes back down.
Well, and if I could just interject, the one great thing about Mark Sarangelo, if you've ever heard him speak, is he talks about how he was able to go to NASA and look at the space shuttle drawings and all of that and do the tech transfer, as well as get surplus equipment from NASA when they started creating the Dream Chaser. So again, an entrepreneur was able to look at free technology that the government had.
Great point.
Be able to incorporate it into a business line, create that, sell it to a large company like Sierra Nevada and develop it, and now it's actually going to be resupplying the International Space Station. So it shows that you can be an entrepreneur. You don't even necessarily have to have your own idea. You could look at the database at NASA, find some of this technology transfer, and start looking at developing it.
Right.
Wow.
So another, of this core curriculum, there's mining for customers. There's just so many topics that are critical for the success of a company either in the aerospace industry or considering going into a space-reliant industry.
Yes.
So then we have what's called the Special Speaker Series, and these are really experts in their fields for a wide variety of topical areas that might be specific to the interest of any one particular person, above and beyond the core curriculum. So we have experts in space law, negotiations in the aerospace-related industries. We have unmanned aerial systems. Eric Frew is a professor at the University of Colorado Boulder in the aerospace engineering sciences, and he's a world's expert in that, and also in working with businesses. Space law is Skip Smith, who's with a law firm, and he's been doing space law for decades, and it's really interesting what he has to talk about.
Okay.
There are international space laws, which are really governed by the UN and a subcommittee of that, and then there are the domestic ones, and there is a whole series of space law. The ones that most people are probably interested in are ITAR, which is, I can never remember the name, what ITAR stands for, but it restricts with whom we can do business in the aerospace industry, who can work, what foreign nationals can or can't work on the aerospace projects or missions. We have Heidi Hostetter, who's the COO. You've had her on the show. I've
times.
seen this, yeah. And she's an expert in additive manufacturing, 3D. We have Jennifer Kurtz, who's a cybersecurity director at
Also
Manufacturers
been on the
Edge.
show.
You've had her on the show. Paul Streit, who's the senior vice president at Sierra Nevada, and he's had experience in all sorts of different industries, medical, everything.
Yeah.
But has spent the last 20 years in aerospace. So those are the kind of experts we have, both in the core curriculum as well as in the speaker series.
And the great thing about those two components is they're webinars. They're online, so they're on demand when busy business people have time to get those captured in their day-to-day life. When can they take it, as opposed to having to come to a class or a workshop? This is designed so that anybody in America can take these programs.
This is amazing. We have to take a quick break, sadly, but we will be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here, and below in the description we have all of those links. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am just going to go ahead and jump right back into our conversation here with Diane Dimeff and Shelly Brunswick, and we are talking about the Space Commerce Program. So we left off in the last segment talking about the 4 components that make up this program. So we got 2 down. Let's talk about the next 2.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the third one is these on-site, in-person training workshops in 6 or 7 different cities. We had one in Denver in December. We have 3 in the LA area coming up. We have one in DC and one in Daytona Beach. Oh, and one in Houston too.
Yes.
Did I miss any?
That's
Shelly?
it for now. And we got a lot that want us to come. So we've got a waiting list.
Oh, yay.
And in these, we're primarily working with academic institutions, hosting them and encouraging their graduate students and corporate partners to join us. But the purpose of these on-site workshops is to supplement the speaker series and the core curriculum that I talked about early in the first 2 components. And so we go into issues of differentiation, positioning your product or your company. We talk about access to capital in greater detail. We talk about strategy and scaling, and it's also a very important piece of this on-site workshop of networking with their own local community and with the guest speakers and the host speakers and connections that we bring into those on-site workshops.
Wow.
So, and they're one day. They're very compressed. There's a significant education component, and then there's a networking component that is as important as the education.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you. I think one of the aspects that we lose when it comes to post-secondary education, right, is that networking piece. That's what helps you get careers. That's what helps you get capital for starting a business, right? That networking component is forgotten a lot in the education system, but it's huge once you get into your career, right? I had no idea how many networking events I needed to go to, and I was not prepped for that. But I'm going to pause here just a minute before we get to that 4th component.
Yes.
And talk about the Denver workshop, because I got to attend that, and it was now. And by attend, I got to attend about 2 hours of that because it was during my work day, and they make me stay here.
They make you work.
They make me work.
Do your interviews, a little,
Yeah, just a small show we run daily. But I got to attend a little bit of that, and one of the workshops that I attended was with Kate Lucy. And as much as you're applying that any industry can go into space, what I realized for the 2-hour workshop that I got to attend was that a lot of what she was talking about, I could apply to my industry right now and make my communication skills better and grow my audience base. And what are my goals looking at, right? And where do I want to see this show go in the future? And so I was really plugging in and plugging along and, along with the PowerPoint and everything else. And so it was really amazing. But that was your kickoff event, right? And so let's talk about what we learned at the Denver event.
Sure. Shelly, do you want to address that, or I'm happy to too? Either one.
I'll talk at a more macro level, and it relates to what you said about building relationships and networks. So we learned as the instructors probably more than the students learned at that event, we'll say, the business people. And what we learned was we really have to reach into the communities where these minority business enterprises are, whether it's the Denver community or the LA community, Pasadena, Houston. And that means working with the local chambers, the economic development councils, the professional organizations that are already in those communities that can help us reach into that constituent base and say, what do you need from this program? So this is not a homogenized program that we're just, everybody gets the same
thing.
The goal is I want to hear what that community needs, and then Diane is going to take what she's hearing and tweak our program to make sure we're delivering a tailor-made program that works for that community and that constituent base. So it's about listening, and then again building those relationships with the local community, those professional organizations, the economic development councils.
Sure. So one of the things that I would say that we didn't include in our December event, which is really critical, was a very in-depth discussion on access to capital, because that really is growing your business and access to capital are the two most critical topics that entrepreneurs are looking for. Small business, actually, all businesses are looking to grow their business and access to capital.
Yes.
However, for the small businesses where I consider there to be kind of two gaps, really from the point where you're starting to becoming a real company, and then I think there's another funding gap that they need, which is, okay, I'm at now revenue generating, but I can't get to the next level. How do I get to that next level? Most people think there's one sort of gap in there, but in my experience with entrepreneurs, there's actually two. So the access to capital is the talk that helps entrepreneurs get from one gap to the next and then beyond that. And so the kind of access to capital issues were, traditionally a startup aerospace company will start with an SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research grant, out of one of the agencies like NASA or NSF or some of the other ones. And those are research oriented, but they're not commercial yet. But there are three phases to SBIRs. STTRs is another. Most of the government agencies have these opportunities to conduct research. And then they hope that the research will convert into a commercializable topic and then into a business. And the government funds that. It's free money. And so the government gives you, like in a phase 1 SBIR, they'll give you $150,000. Phase 2 is $1 million. Phase 3 is anywhere from $1 million to $5 million. And by phase 3, you should be a commercial industry by then, or a commercial business by then. And the same with the other types of grants that are given by the federal agencies. But then once you do that, you can't be an SBIR company for your entire corporate life. Right. You have to actually turn it into a business and get customers and funding, et cetera. So there are non-bank opportunities, there are bank opportunities, which are the most expensive, there are mezzanine opportunities, angel investors, VCs, and the VC community in aerospace-related industries is exploding. It's burgeoning. It's become an area that these very wealthy people have a great deal of interest in because they have a passion for it. Whether it's the aerospace itself or space itself or the application of those technologies, they're beginning to see the investment opportunities and the return on investment from those opportunities.
And in 2017, we had a record-setting amount of space venture capital. It was $3.9 billion. 120 venture capital firms are now interested in space technology. So, where before it might have been an unknown, or you're only looking to be a rocket provider, or that's very different now. The technology and the concepts are very mainstream. What can I bring commercial and bring to the public? And like I said, it's app design, it's the scooters, it's the space cowboys, tracking cattle, it's pharmaceuticals, it's farmers out trying to create more crops. So again, these venture capital firms are now realizing that space is a huge area to invest in, and with great opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I would like to see in my lifetime perhaps shuttle buses to the moon and back, right? Maybe we can do that. Yeah, I have lofty goals.
That's out there. And you're younger than we, so it may actually happen.
Never know.
Yeah.
Could be hotels, you never know.
Exactly. Oh, the first moon hotel.
Well, there's a show on that. I think it's a Netflix show called, starts with an F, not Forbidden. It's Fortitude.
Fortitude, yes.
Yeah, Fortitude gets to be a little bit creepy after a while, but that's the beginning of it, is a space hotel.
In an area we only have 15 minutes, but when you look at Star Trek where it started, think about the technology that we had, the wearable technology they had where they had
So Star Trek.
So I was kind of saying what Diane was talking about television, because what part of the space community is also artists and, music and all this. And when we think back, think about Star Trek. Think about James Kirk. He had wearable technology. He had his communicator. He had the flip phone, right?
Right.
So, you had McCoy had his diagnostic tools. And so think about those applications have become reality because of space technology.
Right.
And so as we look at these shows that are talking about going to Mars, like there's a show on Mars, there's a one about the hotel on the moon and so on, that technology that we're seeing out there that right now might be sci-fi, there's probably somebody sitting in their home thinking, I could develop that. And they're going to start thinking about how they can develop it. So there are ideas out there that are inspiring that next wave of technology that we don't even understand yet that's there. So I'm excited that these shows exist because it helps us understand what's the possible. And now somebody is actually thinking about, how do I make that a reality?
Right.
Exactly, which is where this program comes in.
Exactly.
And
Right.
so, let's circle back here to that fourth component that we have as a part of the program.
Sure. I'm going to turn over the fourth component to Shelly. She has more experience in that area.
Well, the fourth component is going to be, now we have the networking events at all the workshops, but one of the bigger events, as I shared, or the Space Foundation is known for the annual Space Symposium. And this year will be our 35th. But last year, we had 15,000 participants. And this is the place where space leaders, executive, and government officials come from around the world to discuss challenges, opportunities, and the future of the space community. 41 countries were there. 46 states were represented. So it's the place to be. I brought you our latest flyer with our guests who have already confirmed.
Thank you.
So it's exciting. But what we're going to do is we're going to offer 20 scholarships to minority business enterprise. So those scholarship applications will be available on our website in the next week or two. And there'll be an application that they can apply. And then we have Diane and one of our other instructors, Kelly Ogborn, are going to review those to select the 20 scholarship award winners to come to Symposium. So they pay for their travel and hotel and lodging, but we will provide Symposium complimentary. And then they get a concierge service. So Kelly and Kate and Diane will be there available to help them put together what's your plan while you're here. How are you going to make it a success with these 15,000 people, 200 plus companies are represented, and how are you going to plan to work the symposium to your benefit and go out there? So there's a concierge service. We actually have Henry Childs, who's the National Director for Minority Business Development Agency, coming. We have Kevin O'Connell, who's the Director of Space Commerce at the Department of Commerce, coming in. They're going to speak to these 20 scholarship winners. We also are going to offer, for those other companies that applied for the scholarship but were not selected this year, we're going to offer them a discount rate so that they can also come. And the goal is, again, to help them interact with the global space community, because it's not just rocket vehicles and, astronauts, it's also all this technology we've talked about. And so they'll have an opportunity to be at the global premier space event. And they're going to have a concierge service that can help them make sure they've created a business plan and how they're going to operate at Symposium and that they can execute that plan.
That's amazing.
And I would also add another reason why this is an incredible component is that so many of these aerospace companies and aerospace related companies are looking to partner with minority business enterprises, and they have trouble identifying where and who they are across the United States. And so what this scholarship program and the discounted rate program will provide is the opportunity for us to directly introduce the companies and the MBEs, the minority business enterprises, to them, because the minority business enterprises are looking to partner, the companies are looking to partner, but there's a gap between how to do that and what this
There's
program
not a matchmaker.
does. Yeah, we're the matchmaker.
So we're going to be the matchmaker.
I love that. I love that idea of matchmaking here. Golly, this is awesome. Do you mind going in a little bit more on the scholarship and exactly who can apply for these? Is it any students? Is it strictly businesses that are looking? Who can apply?
Well, the people who can apply are people who are in businesses or companies that are in business currently. The scholarship would go to one person in that company and that person should have like a decision-making position. So it would be a COO, a CEO, a program director, something like that. They would have to demonstrate why they want to go, what their plan is, and what they want to get out of it. And then Kelly and perhaps Kate and I would go through those applications and make an assessment of who might benefit the most from it. And then we would invite them into the scholarship program. But there will be we hope there will be many other applicants who will get quite a bit out of it as well. And that's why the Space Foundation has been generous enough to offer this discounted rate to attend.
Yes, and there are 20 scholarships available.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, so again, free money, no reason not to apply. Yes.
Right.
Is there going to be something that you'll look for particularly that might sway your vote?
Yeah. You know,
Chocolate.
there you are. Yeah. So one of the things I did in an MBA program is I oversaw all the admissions processes and wrote the applications and everything like that. And so the concept of who would benefit the most and who could contribute the most are the two factors that I would probably be inclined to consider most heavily.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Great. I think that's great information for people to have when they do go to apply. Let's talk about your future. And so you mentioned you have 3 in the LA area coming up, 3 of these workshops, Daytona, DC, and Houston.
Correct.
Awesome. So let's talk about, we know what we learned from the Denver and moving forward. What are we hoping to get out of each of these? And you want to tailor it to each community as they exist and what they need.
So one of the areas we wanted to look at was partnering with universities. So a lot of it is USC, Houston Community College, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Howard University. By partnering with universities, we can bring in that young entrepreneurial component, the entrepreneurs. So that's one piece we want to tailor. The other part is the minority businesses that might already be a business, but they have to decide, do they want to create a new product line to go into space commerce, and then help them with potentially a mentor protege with aerospace companies that are already successful. And then the third component is working with Minority Business Development Agency, because they have 40 offices across the country. They have the best pulse on this constituent base to help us reach them and allow them to understand what they could benefit by coming to the workshops, by taking the webinars, and applying for the scholarships. So those are the 3 main areas we want to work with going forward in 2019. But the other part is, again, what we shared. Well, I'm going to pause. Let me let Diane jump in a second. Otherwise, I get on a roll.
The 3 main areas, I'm sorry?
Was universities, current businesses, and then MBDA agents.
Yeah, and EDAs, too, economic development companies or councils or corporations, depending on the state and how they've named it. Piece of going national in this is that it's really,
or even international,
is that we're coming up on a significant outflow of baby boomers in all space-related industries, but particularly aerospace. And so in many ways, this program is a workforce replacement. The funnel of those people going out is much larger than the funnel of those people who currently are interested in going into space-related industries. And so we need to get to as many minority business enterprises as possible, as well as all of Americans who might be interested, younger Americans who might be interested in going into space-related technologies. The reason I say Americans is that because of space law issues and ITAR, there are many restrictions on who can work on various types of space-related technologies, who's allowed to. So that's a really important part of this program, is this workforce replacement issue. And so that's what I wanted to.
Yes.
And I'm just going to highlight, not only for the Space Foundation, we also are concerned with education as a whole. So this is a part where we can shore up our current workforce or current Americans who may be looking at opportunities in space. But we also care about the K through 12, creating that pipeline of not just the workers today and tomorrow, but 10 years down the road. And that's got to be diversity as well. Are we reaching rural communities, disadvantaged communities, women, minorities, to look at STEM careers, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, to pursue these degrees so that 10 years down the road, we have those replacements again. And so it's a long-term process, not just tomorrow's workforce, but 10 years down the road. And again, we need to look at areas that we haven't enticed to come into STEM careers. And right now, it's critical with the Space Commerce Program that I'm making mentors and role models that reflect America so that young 4th and 5th graders can see themselves in those role models and follow that track.
Yes.
And the Space Foundation does a great job of these STEM programs. So, and they come from all over the United States to participate in these STEM programs.
So we'll save that for a future podcast.
So, yes.
But obviously, we have a very long process. The one thing I wanted to highlight is when we think about the space program, when we go back to Apollo 11 and landing on the moon, and it was it was Buzz, it was Mike, it was Neil. 3 people. But in reality, it was millions of Americans here at home that made that possible. Engineers and scientists that did that and created those flight suits and created the technology. And so what we're looking at is, it's not just the moon, Mars, and beyond. It's also, what are we doing here on Earth? And so what I like to highlight is, the Space Commerce Program is about app design and financials and healthcare and pharmaceuticals and big ag and Internet of Things and all of these. And all of these activities are obtainable for all Americans if they want to pursue this. They may not have the technology. There may be somebody that's already developed it, like NASA. They just need somebody who says, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to develop it. I'm already in business. I want to consider being a supplier to that industry. And all of this is attainable. So for 2019, the Space Foundation wants to make sure we're focusing on sharing the message that all Americans can participate in the future space program. Join us, be part of us. We want you to check out our webinars. We want you to come to Symposium, come to our workshops around the country. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback, and we want to learn.
Yes, I love that. Very well said. I think one of my favorite trends that happened this last year was changing STEM to STEAM.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Yes. So for our audience that may not be aware, STEM was science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And what they changed that A to, they included art. Yes. So that is that component. So I like that you're opening up this, because as far as I was concerned when I was in school, I'll be quite honest, STEM careers did not appeal to me. I knew that I wasn't a big fan of science. Math was not my forte. Engineering sounds like it would take forever to get through school, right? And so it wasn't appealing to me. But to know that arts can be included and to look at whatever your passion is and your career and how that can relate to science and how that can relate to future technologies is where you guys are at. And I love that you're making that a whole piece.
So let me share the art component, because a lot of people think I don't understand art. So yes, I need the STEM folks, but I need that art piece, because the art piece is the creative piece. And you know what creativity is? Problem solving. And do we have a lot of problems that we want to solve? Absolutely. Do we need people who can think outside the box and solve some of these problems? Yes. And a lot of those people have the A component. They're the problem solvers. They're the people who can do critical thinking. They may have digital literacy. But they can also maybe collaborate and communicate. So we need the A. And our program is designed for this, but let's talk about STEM. The Space Foundation has our STEM, our Center for Education and Innovation, because as we look at the U.S., we're looking at 50% of the jobs in America by 2026 require some STEM education. Now, that doesn't mean a 4-year degree or a PhD. It might be a 2-year vocational or just STEM understanding. So again, the Space Foundation is to advocate for STEM careers to be the future workforce and also to come into space commerce and be part of the current workforce.
Right. And I'd like to add something to that. We talk about anyone can be in the space industry, but we haven't talked about what kind of positions are out there. So obviously there's aerospace, there's engineering, etc. But there are a ton of different career paths within the space industry, whichever industry someone chooses. As an example, at eSpace, we had a program where we provided training grants to companies, aerospace companies that hired from outside the aerospace industry. And so one of the things that a lot of aerospace and aerospace-related companies are hurting for, and in Colorado specifically, are these skilled workers who have like quality control skills. They have fine motor skills for designing and making the components that go into a wide range of products. So, for example, my poster child for that one was a gentleman who had been a tattoo artist for 20 years. And we hired him into a company and provided the company with training. And he now has health benefits. He has retirement benefits. He's happy as a clam. And he's been there for almost 10 years now. So there are such a wide range of career opportunities within space-related industries that really we need to help people understand that opportunity base.
Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. And check out more at, again, spacefoundation.org. Check below in the description. You can find all of the website materials that we've talked about on today's show. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page while you're here. Have a wonderful day. Thank you both so much.
We have a little gift for you, our Space Foundation coin. So thank you.
I love this. Thank you.
Now you're part of the space commerce.
Yeah, there you are.
Next stop, astronaut.
Let's go.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.